So if you guys do not know, I switched to AMD GPUs from Nvidia for the last 2 weeks now, and I thought I'd go over my thought process on AMD as their graphics cards, if they're good or not, if they're bad, just pretty much everything about them you need to know, because I have been using Nvidia ever since my first ever PC was an HP PC, had a 2060 in it, and then later on that was like a pre-build. I built my own PC with a nice 2080 Super, and this was the first ever GPU I really kind of bought for my PC and started using, which this thing is an absolute beast, and it's been doing me so good. But the one thing about AMD that's always curious to me is their price point to performance and how good they actually are. Now, I've heard a lot of rumors with them, whether their drivers be bad, their video encoders are not great for streaming, and all these other things. But now that I have a tech channel, I can finally answer all those questions to figure out, are AMD GPUs actually a banger for the buck? Are they have bad drivers? Do they actually matter? So that's the question I want to answer here today. So I switched out my 2080 Super with the RX 6600. Now, downgrading my GPU is probably not the best thing in the world, but I will say this, it does sometimes perform a little bit better than my 2080 Super, but it's for very niche games, to say the very least. The other thing is too, I'm losing some benefits of going Nvidia, like the DLSS, to actually like ray tracing and stuff, but AMD has it, but it's not very notable. Their coders are where the thing I was most interested in, because like the 2080 Super, the NVENC encoder, absolutely dominates just encoding and streaming in general, and AMD has it, and I was kind of curious to see like, if it's actually good. I did a whole separate video on that recently, testing if AMD GPUs are just good for streaming, and I can confirm the first rumor, AMD encoder is bad. They're not. They're really good. Besides sometimes the stream's looking a little bit more blurry, it isn't the worst thing in the world, but it performs really good. Surprisingly, RX 6000, 8 gigs of VRAM, we can literally game and stream up to 2 platforms with it, which was way more surprising than I thought it would be. I'm really curious though, because I'm going to pin up that GPU against the Nvidia GPU to see which one is better, AMD or Nvidia for streaming all together. So if you don't want to miss out on that video, definitely get subscribed. So I was able to answer the first question about AMD GPUs. Are they actually bad for streaming? And no, they're not, which is awesome. The second thing I wanted to figure out was about GPU drivers and if they're actually like wonky or not. So this is going to be a little bit more interesting. If you guys did not know, since I've been using for 2 weeks, I haven't had any problems with the drivers. I stole the right drivers, everything was good to go. But one day recently, this week was actually yesterday, I actually had a power outage in the studio, and when that power goes out on this breaker, I usually fix my brother's room too, because we're on the same breaker. So what happened was, I was like, okay, nothing's wrong with the PC, right? So check both PCs, they're working perfectly fine. However, I'm not getting a display output to the PC. So I'm like, okay, maybe the motherboard's it, but that wouldn't make sense because there's power going to the LEDs and stuff. So I did all this elaborate testing. Then I finally decided, okay, I'm gonna slap in my GPU. I slap in this GPU, works perfectly fine, which is amazing. Display output works. So I'm like, okay, maybe the AMD GPU died. So I'm like, oh my God, that's like $200. I was gonna use that for a PC build later here for like AM5, which I'm still working on that video. It's cooking, don't worry, it's coming. So I was like, okay, maybe the GPU died, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll test it. Doesn't work, no HDMI. But then I decide to plug it into a DisplayPort cable, and it magically just works, which is awesome. However, the monitor only supports with that cable 1080p, 120 hertz. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just try plugging the HDMI back in, it'll just magically work. It actually did do that. I caught this all on stream, by the way, so I'll probably use that as B-roll when I show the thing actually happening. To answer the question, do AMD GPU drivers have issues? Yes, they're very weird issues, like that one, for example, I just explained to you guys, but I don't have them as often as I thought it would be, especially when I'm gaming on multiple games, especially when streaming. It works perfectly fine, which is awesome. Next point I want to go over, are the price point for AMD GPUs for gaming actually good? Yes, I think they're actually amazing. I've seen everyone on YouTube recommend go AMD if you're building a PC on a budget, all that jazz. And I could say a lot of those people who recommend those, most people who watch the videos don't really buy it. I've actually got a viewer who kind of explained to me, even though I watch people build PCs, I might not build it for myself, but I like watching to see what happens with parts I don't usually use. I think that's an interesting concept to think about. So I feel like a lot of people recommend AMD, but just nobody buys them. And I think that's because the fact that most of the market is kind of ruled by Nvidia, because the 3060s are amazing, especially on the market. You can see like on Steam charts, it's all Nvidia. AMD in here and there. I do feel like though they're amazing for their price, especially since AMD even knows like they're not going to compete against Nvidia in the high-end market. They're only competing in the budget market, and they're absolutely crushing it. Just kind of unfortunate, because that means now Nvidia can set the price of GPUs whatever they be. Only caveat, but AMD knows what they're doing, and they're doing a fantastic job at the very least. Now the real question is, will I stay on AMD or go back to Nvidia for Team Green for, you know, just having a GPU in general? Now, the big question with this is I want to do a little bit more testing with this. I'm going to stay on AMD for the time being because I am very happy with the results of testing. The only thing that concerns me is that after that power outage thing, I haven't really gamed because I'm more concerned about killing the PC. I haven't had any issues recently. I just streamed like last night. It was good. But I'm gonna stay on Team Red for a little bit longer. I think I'll give it a whole month, and then I'll probably switch back to Team Green, just because of the fact that I have this overpowered GPU, right? If I have this high-end GPU, why would I stay on a budget GPU? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's my final thoughts on AMD GPUs. If you guys did find this video interesting, make sure to smash the like button. If you don't want to miss out feature content here, because we got a lot of PC builds planned and all this other jazz, so definitely get subscribed. I'll see you for another one. Tech Grant out.